Hey guys, welcome back to Island Misfit Toy Collectors. Dreadnought Ryan here, and today I want to go over some news, some updates, as well as talk about the amazing opportunity I had to speak to both Lenny and Tony from the G.I. Joe design team on a toy kind of mood, and then just answer some of the questions that have popped up. Receive great support from a number of folks for the interview that we did have with them. There were some questions about what we could ask, what we couldn't, or why some of the responses were what they were. And I want to kind of address some of those in this video just so that you guys can get a better understanding of what went into getting that interview, and then why we chose some of the questions that we did. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's start with the news. Again, most of you know, Mattel and Hasbro have joined forces. This is a licensing agreement which allows both of these companies to really take what they do best in certain brands and use licensing to build on those brands. So, for example, you'll see the Barbie Monopoly game, Transformers with Hot Wheels. These are type of opportunities using some of the upcoming entertainment that both of these companies have to expand those brands and gain better sales opportunities. It's a great synergy for these two companies to work together and utilize the expertise that they have in different toy lines. A big shout out to Bob Breakin and to Brian Hickey. There will be an upcoming Kickstarter for My Palitoy story about Bob Breakin. If you don't know, Bob Breakin is probably the godfather of Action Force for the UK. He worked with Palitoy for a number of years and created some of the most iconic vehicles and action figures out there. Mr. Breakin is an absolute legend, and there's a number of channels that have had an opportunity to interview Mr. Breakin, so go ahead and check out some of those. Next, just for an update, if you did order Zartan Retro or Storm Shadow Retro, Pulse is sending out shipping notifications that your item will be shipping soon. I hope this means that Walmart will be having these figures pretty soon as well. So hopefully if you ordered through either one of those for pre-orders, you should be shipping out anytime soon. If you are a action figure hunter, hopefully you'll start seeing these figures hit the aisles in your local Walmart, or whatever store will have these for you, depending on where you're located on the island. A big shout out to Chris McLeod again. He did share on a recent news burst that Firefly and Tunnel Rat release date should be around October of 2023. These will also be part of that 5-figure wave. So the standard release wave, we should see these in hand around October of 2023. I am assuming that we will see these probably available for pre-order for YoJo June. So that should be a pretty fun June timeframe for G.I. Joe fans. So I look forward to seeing what YoJo June's stream event will include. So again, I did have a great opportunity with my buds over at A Toy Kind of Mood. We did Welcome to the Terradrome. It was the Hasbro Joe Team takeover. So we did have the opportunity again to talk to Lenny and Tony. I would have to give a big shout out to Travis Moody. Travis worked tirelessly to get this interview. As many of you know, if you're a subscriber to Toy Kind of Mood, KJ, Bobby, and Travis did get to interview Lenny and Emily at San Diego Comic-Con 2022, and he's been working that relationship to bring them on A Toy Kind of Mood again. So when you have the opportunity to talk to either folks at Mattel or Hasbro, there's certain items that they can and they can't talk about. Future state items, trade secrets, anything that can have a positive or negative effect on the company. They are, they can't speak to those items due to a number of different things. It could be treated as insider trading, again, trade secrets, but basically their hands are kind of tied. If you look at any of the releases that have come from, let's say, Hasbro. So when the packaging was moving from cardboard back to the window packaging, it was a press release that came out announcing that. Any large company or publicly traded company has a legal team that has to approve a lot of these types of releases. And it's just so that it protects the company and the employees from releasing items, again, that could hurt or help the company. And also, if you've ever seen some publicly traded companies getting sued by shareholders because of either missed earnings opportunities or different things like that, these are all of those rules and regulations that are put in place that stop a lot of that information from being shared. Another part of it is, Tony and Lenny may not know. That may be above, as I like to say, their pay grade, and those decisions are made at a higher level. So when we went into this particular interview, we wanted to be able to interact with the guys. And the goal was not to have 15 questions of, why is Hasbro greedy? When are you going to bring O-Ring back? Why do you hate O-Ring? Any of these kind of crazy questions that you've seen on any message boards. We knew that they weren't going to be able to answer those. And we wanted to make sure that the half hour that we did have with these guys, we could use to actually get some information from them. So, for my particular questions that I was able to ask, it was like, which figures did you like working on the best? And of course, I had to get them both to admit that the Dreadnoks are the greatest characters of all time. But it was also, I asked about the tooling catalog and how Lenny is building out the tooling. And why that's an important question is, if you look at some of the earlier classified figures that we had, so Destro, for example, we got the standard release Destro, and then we got Profit Director Destro. And then all of a sudden, Barbecue came out, and a lot of folks were like, I get Barbecue's, we all know Barbecue from the Real American Hero line, but he wasn't like an A-plus player. And it wasn't until you looked and saw that Destro's body was pretty much used for Barbecue. And the tooling upgrades were the chest piece, the helmet, or the head for Barbecue, and then, of course, the accessories. Lenny stated in the interview that, he looks at what figures should look like, and then he tries to design them from there. He also stated, though, that, with any type of the figure lines that you have, they're given a budget that covers tooling and deco hits. And Lenny is currently working on 2025 and 2026 G.I. Joe Classified series. And so he gets a budget from his higher ups on what they want to spend. And then he takes that information and he puts together, these are the figures that we're going to do. We feel these are going to be the best sellers. This should help, hit those sales goals that we have to meet the budget that you provided. Those are all then reviewed by Hasbro's higher ups, sales department, marketing department, management, and then they approve or deny them. Sometimes legal approves or denies them due to maybe not having that figure's particular name. They let it go and somebody else has picked it up, so they have to change something. All of that stuff is used to determine which figures we'll see in the wave, and also what tooling is currently available. Now, what that could mean is they may have a wave that's already being produced, and that tooling is not readily available for the next wave because they're still finishing that up. So he basically broke down how they plan out the year without telling us exactly what was coming out. And it's trying to meet all of the goals that they are presented with to make sure they can keep the line going. We did ask about the 3 3/4 inch figures a number of different times in the interview, and both Lenny and Tony, you can tell, do love the OG 3 3/4 inch. And Lenny said it was something that stuck in my mind is, you have to look at what the budget you have for tooling, and you have to make sure it's the best bang for your buck. Now, we can look at how many of the Sky Striker for the HasLab sold, and then if you compare that to the Hiss Tank, we all know that the Hiss Tank did outsell the Sky Striker. Now, there are a number of different Sky Strikers that are already out there. There is the original 3 3/4 inch. There was the, modern 4 inch Sky Striker. And so, you just had an upgraded Sky Striker, which I get. Some people didn't see the need in having to own another Sky Striker. But I think a lot of it comes down to why we're not seeing some of the 4 inch or even the O-ring is it's just not selling as well as what Classified is. And I think Classified is sold in the quantities that it has because it's brought in newer collectors from other lines, Star Wars, Marvel Legends, a number of different, lines. You can even probably think some of the wrestling collectors, because the figures fit somewhat in their their universe, if you will. If you have all your different figures on your shelf or however you store them. I think that's part of the reason why the Classified Joe figures have done so well is it's selling to a wider audience than us hardcore Joe collectors, who still want, some of the old 3 3/4 or 4 inch figures. Before I started collecting Classified, I was a modern Joe collector. So I had tons of figures. And it was quite frustrating to not see new figures or to see that Toys R Us was the only one who was going to carry the figures and they were just redecos of either the same vehicles or the same figures. And it was, as we found out from Mark Webber, they just weren't given the budget to create those new figures and new vehicles just due to what the sales numbers were for the Joe line. And I think that Hasbro is kind of going back maybe to the drawing board for the O-ring to see what can and can't sell. They did release, I believe it was 3 2-packs. And then, of course, you've had the Transformer crossover series where the Transformer crossover series seems to have done very well. I know they also had the Stinger that they re-released with the Stinger driver and O-ring, which sold out immediately on Hasbro Pulse. But the figures seem to be struggling for as far as sales. So that all went into what we were looking to ask the design team without getting the standard. We can't talk about that, or, it's a future state and we can't discuss that. Or we wanted, again, to make sure that we could at least interact with these guys. And that was part of the reason why we had to ask the questions that we did. When you do an interview with the Hasbro team, you work with a marketing person. You do send your questions to them. They did not say that we couldn't ask any of the questions. So there were no edits from Hasbro on what we could or couldn't ask. It was more so, we've got a half hour. Let's make sure we're asking good questions and get the most out of that half hour that we could. So that's why we didn't turn this into just kind of I don't want to say an ambush interview with them, because I think it is important to continue to build a relationship with these designers and these creators. Also, you may not like Hasbro, and that's understandable. You may not like their business decisions. You may not like price increases. You may not like how they bought up pretty much the majority of the competition. But Lenny and Tony are designers, and they don't make those decisions. So I wasn't, and I think the guys at the Toy Kind of Mood, we weren't going to go in there and ambush them. We wanted to treat them with respect. These guys have designed some amazing figures. They listen to what the fans say. They try to take that into account while balancing the needs of Hasbro. So they're tasked with a number of goals they need to hit, while they're also trying to provide what the fans are asking for as well. So that's why I thought it was important at the end of the interview to tell them that they are doing an amazing job, and that they are appreciated. I think any creator needs to hear that. For the QC issues, you can go and watch Chris McLeod. He did an interview with Lenny and Emily, where he pretty much flat out asked them during his time about the QC problems. They know about it. They shared that information with us. I wish we could have recorded the after interview because we were able to really talk to Lenny and Tony and get a better understanding of how much they do appreciate the G.I. Joe brand, how they do listen to the fans, and how they just want to see continued success of this brand. You know, when you talk about, I don't think there's any company out there that wants QC issues. And I don't think that you can blame per se a company or a creator for some of the QC issues. Could it be a design issue? Sure, absolutely. But, I don't think that, people want to have foots that break off. They don't want to have arms that fall off. They don't want to have misapplied paint apps. And they also know that trying to get some of these figures has been difficult. When you talk about supply chain issues, Hasbro sells to businesses. So they'll sell to Walmarts, they'll sell to Targets, they'll sell to, whichever retailer it is. And then it's on them to get those figures out to the customers. Even with Hasbro Pulse, that is treated like its own retail entity under Hasbro. So they have to buy that product right from Hasbro. So they buy limited quantities because just of probably what their budgets are. But, if you want to get mad because your Walmart store gets, 7 cases of CoverGirl and they don't get the rest of the wave, that's not a Hasbro issue. That's a Walmart issue. So that's why a lot of the questions that I know that folks were asking, like, why didn't you ask that? That's the reason why. It's knowing who you're interviewing, what abilities they have to answer or to possibly address, and what they can't. Would I love to have Hasbro Legal on to say, why did you feel it was necessary to raise, your figure prices from $20 to $24.99? Maybe look at management and say, we've all seen steady increases across the board for these toys, but what are you going to do to balance that price increase with, value for these items? And unfortunately, Lenny and Tony can't answer those questions. So, that's why we asked the questions that we did. I thought it was a pretty successful interview. I will say this, both of these gentlemen truly care about this brand. They care about all the brands they work on. Lenny is, I say this with all the love in my heart, one of the biggest nerds I've ever met in my life. He does so much research on different items, like with CoverGirl, the little wrench that was tucked into her belt. He was looking up like, hey, there's tank wrenches, and what if we designed one of those and put that in there? They're very detail oriented and trying to do the best that what they can with what they have. So I don't have a problem with people, being upset that price has gone up. I don't have a problem with people, wanting to make sure that QC issues get addressed. Absolutely. But I think if you're going to hold people accountable for these things, let's make sure we're holding the right people accountable and not just attacking the first people that we see. So again, thank you guys. I know this is longer than I normally do, and it was more so I just wanted to kind of get this out there, talk through some of the stuff that we were able to talk to these guys about. I'm excited for what this brand holds. I truly hope we figure out a way of getting more 4-inch figures into collectors' hands, whether that's through Hiya Toys or, heaven forbid, maybe Super 7's given the opportunity to do the O-rings instead of the reaction line. I think that could be a win-win for everybody. But if you are a collector out there and you are jonesing for, whether it's O-rings or 4-inch figures, Go and check out Delta 17. Go and check out Grindstone Toys. Go and check out Carson Metaxas with Operation Recall. You can pick up some pretty amazing stuff in that O-ring or 3 3/4 inch. For 4-inch figures, Marauders Gunrunners is the best place to go, as well as Fresh Monkey Fictions on Big Bad Toy Store. You can pick up a lot of amazing figures, and then hopefully that will start filling in some of the gaps you may have in your collection. But that's it. Thank you again, everyone, for hanging through this longer than normal video. There are still a couple folks I'm waiting to hear from for the 500 subscriber giveaway. So if you could reach out to me, that would be stupendous, so I can make sure I can get you your item. To Daredevil Dave, congratulations, buddy. I was able to get your gift card out to you, so I hope you're able to find something that you really wanted. Again, thank you, everyone, for your support. Again, I hope you're having a great day, evening, morning, wherever you're at on the island. Misfit Toy Collectors, and Yo Joe.